Hi students, so we're going to continue with our tower here, and I've deleted the extra keyframes that you saw at the end of the previous video because we are going to create them now. So if I click on my box, which is the top of the totem pole, it's the bottom of the tower, but it's the top of the totem pole, top of the hierarchy, whatever the box does, the other two objects, the sphere and the teapot, will do as well. So for the first part of our animation, we keyframed the movement of the box from one side of the grid to the other, and at the same time we also added some keyframing to the rotation of the teapot to make it look like it was wobbling along as the tower traveled. Now, this again is just a quick reminder to notice that the teapot has its own keyframes that do not show up when we click other members of the hierarchy, because since the teapot is at the bottom of the hierarchy, what it does has no effect on anybody else. So it's along for the ride, and it can do some other stuff if we tell it to, which is exactly what's going on here. Opposite being that the box is at the bottom, and so the two keyframes that we set for the box dictate movement for the other two objects above it, but we do not see keyframes for those two objects. So check this out. We haven't done anything with the sphere yet, and that keyframe is there because I put it there. You will not have it, so getting it out of there. So the sphere does not have any keyframes yet. It does move in the scene, but that's because it's linked to the box. So we are going to now reach a point in the animation where we don't necessarily want our objects to move as one anymore, and we are going to animate the movement of the ball kind of falling off of the box and taking the teapot with it. Now, granted, the falling of the sphere is not going to look super realistic because it's very difficult to simulate the fall of an object as it would in real gravity because it's just challenging. And 3ds Max does have built-in dynamics where we can set a weight for our objects and a gravity field so that a fall looks realistic. But we're rookies and we're not totally ready for that yet. So we're going to do our best with the beginner tools that we have and do a little animation of stuff falling off the box. Now, once again, since we have our objects linked together, this is awesome because while we wanted everybody to move as one for the beginning of some independent movement. Okay, so I'm about to show you something that you can do that's a mistake. So do not do what I'm about to do. Just watch the video for a few seconds so you can see what can happen if you do not take this initial precaution. So we talked a moment ago about how the sphere has no keyframes of its own because it's really just been along for the ride because the box is dictating where it is in space. It's possible to break your animation if you do not sort of anchor the sphere. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's really easy to say to yourself, okay, well, at frame 60, the tower has come to a stop, and now I'm ready to have my ball look like it falls off the edge, and I want it to end up over here. And then so I bring it all the way over there, I keyframe it, and then I go back, and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? What just happened? Well, what just happened is that we didn't tell the computer to make note of the fact that the sphere comes to rest here along with the box. I'm not sure why Max does it this way. I'm going to do an undo. Click Control Z doesn't work when I'm screen recording. I did an undo, and I'm going to show you the difference. So I'm at frame 60, where I want my tower to have come to a stop, which it has. We can see that keyframe there. And I am going to just do a simple keyframe that's going to tell the computer, yes, at frame 60, the sphere is right where it belongs on top of the box, and this is kind of the starting point. So now, if I go over here and I bring my sphere kind of down a little bit, and I do a keyframe, we can see that by adding that keyframe right there, we ensure that the computer doesn't see this movement as a fresh movement out of nowhere and override the hierarchy. Okay, so here we go. So that doesn't look very realistic. Actually, if you do it really slowly, the sphere looks like it actually kind of goes through the box. So I'm going to add some more detail in here. So maybe I want it to actually hit the ground at this point. And then maybe I want it to bounce once or twice. Let's see how that looks. It's kind of fast. Now, the way that I had it animated, the way I had it start right at when the sphere stops, doesn't totally capture the realism. If this was a real physical situation, as the box started to slow down, the sphere might start traveling. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take that initial keyframe and I'm going to back it up a little bit. That way our sphere will start moving off the box as the box comes to a stop. Okay, a little better. I'm going to move it back even a little more. Okay. So now that I have adjusted, and I think actually the sphere going up in the air makes it look unrealistic as well. So I'm actually going to bring it down a tiny bit and redo that keyframe. So let's watch it see. It's a little better. Although I think we could actually drag that initial keyframe and spread these guys out even a little more. Slow all that down at the end. Let's see. There you go. So as the box comes to a stop, the teapot or the sphere comes off of it and kind of bounces to the ground. Now, since the sphere is now moving kind of independently of the box to some degree, what we set up for our teapot needs to be adjusted as well, right? So as our motion begins, our teapot sort of tilts back and then tilts forward as it moves. But we probably want it to sort of tilt back even more than it is, because now it's sort of falling off of the, now it's going to end up kind of falling off the ball completely as the ball slides off the teapot. So let's see how that looks. Okay, there we go. All right. So the last thing we'll do is maybe have the teapot kind of bounce off of the ball and fly off to the side when the ball hits the ground. So let's see where in our animation, where's that keyframe when the ball hits the ground? Right there. So at that moment, we probably want the teapot to rotate forward. And we'll keyframe that. And then at that point, the teapot will have flown off into the distance. And I'm actually going to use my top viewport for that because I don't want to move my point of view. I'm actually just going to move the teapot kind of like off to the side so it looks like it flew away. So here we go. Let's play back the masterpiece. Oops. And this might happen to you too. Whichever viewport is selected is where the animation is going to play back. So since I did some work in the top or the front viewport up here, notice there's a red bar around it. So it thinks that that's where I want to view my animation. So I can simply right click in my lower animation so that, or my perspective view, so that when I hit play, I actually see the movement here. So let's watch. Yeah, there you go. So again, not super realistic, but you can see how that over the course of these last two videos, we have continued to fine-tune and to add details in the movement of these objects, and using our hierarchy to our advantage as we do that. So one of the things as you practice this sort of animation is sort of thinking big picture first and continuing to add detail as you go. So we started by just animating the motion of the tower moving from left to right. Then we added some detail in the teapot rocking back and forth. And then we added some detail where we had the ball move from the sphere itself to off to the side. And then we were able to add some intermediate movements in between. So it's sort of you think of your movement as the big picture, and then you continue to fine tune it down. So that's basic keyframing, and you can also keyframe scale. So we have a couple minutes in this video, and I just will, just for fun, add a scale, something maybe after the teapot and the sphere go flying off, maybe the box will grow. So let's do just like we did before. We want to make sure that we keyframe. We have to add scale to our list. Now, why didn't we just add scale to the beginning? Well, we hadn't decided, first of all, that we wanted scale to even be part of our animation. And also, it works to our advantage because watch what happens. If we had added scale from the beginning, we would have had a whole bunch of other keyframes for scale that basically meant nothing. So we would have saved additional information about our object that we didn't need. So by only keyframing the values that you need at the time, keyframes you made in the past won't have information that's extra. So if we want to really quick say that we want to scale this guy, we do a quick keyframe here, and then as they fall off in the distance, we can maybe make that bigger and keyframe there, and there you have it. Now you probably noticed in the side viewport when you were watching that by scaling the bottom object in our hierarchy, everything else scaled up with it, which again is a function of the hierarchy itself. So see how our teapot and our sphere started growing as well. So keyframing scale can be a tricky thing, especially when you have a hierarchy involved. So we're not going to do too much with that, but I just wanted to show you that keyframing scale is also an option. So for best practice, if we were to continue this animation and we knew we probably weren't going to do much with scale after that, we would probably shut that off so that any other keyframes we add didn't store additional information about scale that we weren't going to need. So that is it for now. In the next video, we are going to explore another technique for allowing objects to move through our scene that provides us a little more control over where the objects are actually going. It's related to keyframing, but it can be a little more powerful in terms of moving objects in a particular path through space. So that's it. See you soon.